Let's talk about silver, specifically one of these. This is an antimicrobial silver disc called Silverlon. Now, this applies to majority of silver dressings, but I digress. We're going to talk about the fundamental chemistry of how this thing works. Very interesting. So many myths revolving around what silver does, how it works, what's going to make it ineffective, what's going to make it effective. So let's do a little deep dive on one of these bad boys. So now in this context, I don't know about every silver dressing out there, but I do know about these, and the science pretty much is the same across the board. So let's go over the chemistry. So we've known that silver was an antimicrobial agent. It helped clean things up, prevent infections. Silverware. When that silver solid gets oxidized, it starts to get positively charged into silver ion, Ag+. I'm sure you've seen that sign before. What are some ways that silver becomes oxidized? There's so much. Exposure to air, exposure to acids, exposure to liquid, water, moisture, what have you. There's so many different ways that it can be oxidized. It's going to oxidize almost no matter what. So in the instructions for use, it said that you need to activate the device by adding normal saline fluids or sterile water fluid. Why are they saying that? What do they mean by activate when the silver is going to be oxidized by air, sweat, proteins, blah, 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 blah. This is not the opinion or the statements from any manufacturer that I've ever talked to. It is just my deduction from what I understand about chemistry. So if you're a chemist, please let me know if I'm grossly wrong about this. But I believe activation is yes. The moisture will oxidize that silver for sure. However, there are other ways that it oxidizes. So why is it so important that we put liquid to oxidize and not anything else? Why not just put it under the sun and let it oxidize that way? Here's why. Now keep in mind, this is just my opinion and my deduction from what I understand about basic chemistry and science, not the opinion of any of these manufacturers. So if they have something to say, let me know so that I can correct myself. However, we know that other things can activate, can oxidize these silver dressings. So why liquid? Because of surface area. We want oxidization to happen. Is that even a word? We want it to oxidize faster, but also spread to every nanometer of the surface of the skin to get to every nanometer surface of the microbe. Remember, these ions are much smaller than the bacteria and the virus and what have you. So you need as much surface area of these ions coating the organisms, coating your skin so that it can actually do its job at scale and not just at the contact points. Yes, this looks small. Yes, it looks like it's all encompassing. However, because of the shape of the silver on these dressings and the fibers, they don't come in contact completely. There are nanometers, square nanometers of area that are uncovered, untouched by these silver ions. However, if you have it swimming in fluid, now it's completely exposed. So to make that device more effective, to cover more area around the bacteria in your skin and the wound, we want you to wet it so that that water, that pool, that liquid will seep into every crevice, every nano crevice of your skin of the bacteria to be able to start destroying that bacteria. So yes, it is best to wet these things and then apply it. However, if you forget to, again, my opinion, it is not worth redressing. It is not worth disrupting the dressing. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, it's not as effective. However, it is still working. It is still doing something with the moisture and sweat from your skin and also from light exposure. So it's still oxidizing, still doing its thing, but not as effective as if it were wet. So it is not worth changing that dressing, exposing that sensitive insertion site to more elements and more chances of bacterial contamination. Now, there's a few people who are debating about whether saline or sterile water is more effective or problematic. Yes, chlorine ions will bond with silver ions. The negatively charged chlorine and the positively charged silver will bond together and become ineffective. However, it depends on how many silver ions are available compared to chlorine ions. So let's just put up some fake numbers. This silver disc has and delivers 10 silver positively charged ions. The sodium chloride flush, the saline has, let's say, 3. It's not accurate, but it'll give you the idea of the concept. There's still going to be enough silver distributed from and leaching off from these devices that sodium chlorine will not bind with all the silver. Not only that, there is something called redox. There is something called dissociation. So when that insoluble sodium chloride connects together, binds together, silver and chlorine binds into a silver chloride, it'll turn into an insoluble solid. Now, what's cool about that? When that lands on a tissue, on the bacteria, it will start to disassociate at that site over time or later, almost like a time release bomb. And it won't do anything there at that moment. But when the environment is perfect and it disassociates, that silver ion will start to have an antimicrobial effect. So it's debatably even better because now there's a long release. So for those of you who watched The Bachelorette, I'm hoping this metaphor will help you understand it a little bit more easily or better. Silver is the toxic partner in the relationship. They will bind with whoever just to get married, just to get that, this, what have you. What's unfortunate about silver is it's very finicky. When the relationship gets tough, when they find a better partner, they're going to disassociate and go on and move on with their life, single and ready to mingle as quickly as possible, and they are a walking red flag. However, when they go out to their single and mingling, they're also killing everybody else, the bacteria. So it's good. We want it to be a red flag. We want it to start ruining everybody else's lives because those are the baddies. So don't be afraid that it's clung on to the chlorine. It's not going to last long. It's a very short-term relationship and it's going to disassociate and start ruining everybody else's lives. Okay, now, why are some manufacturers telling us do not use sodium chloride? Don't use saline. That's going to deactivate or make it ineffective. That's true. Remember what we said? The silver positively charged ion will bind with the chlorine ion, the negatively charged ion. Not immediately, not all the time, but it will. And that is because they don't have a lot of silver in their device. That means they have a very minimal amount of silver, and just a little bit of that silver can bind with that little bit of chlorine. So my question to them is, why don't you have as much silver? Why allow that margin of error? Maybe there's hypersensitivity, but we need the antimicrobial effect. So they have no choice. We need a low grade or low reservoir silver. I don't know. Or maybe we're trying to save money so we don't have to spend so much silver. And this is just enough to kill just enough bacteria. But if you use saline, you're screwed. I don't know. These are just guesses and hypotheses because no one has given me the answer yet. So we're going to pontificate until they can give me these answers. Why don't you have as much silver in your device where the sodium chloride flushes are going to be a problem? So I hope that answers some questions about silver and how it works. Yes, follow the instructions for use. It is the best way to use their devices. However, there are going to be situations where you're going to come across, like you forgot to moisten it, you forgot to hydrate it. Is it a problem? In my opinion, it's not as bad of a problem compared to reopening that dressing, allowing contamination and risk of contamination.